Jordan Peterson just dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming, exposing critical points that everyone else missed in the debate. Known for his sharp intellect and deep analysis, Peterson's insights have left people questioning what they thought they understood about the discussion. His breakdown reveals gaps in logic, overlooked arguments, and underlying issues that completely change the narrative. As the world reacts to his eye-opening take, it's clear that Peterson has once again shifted the conversation in a way only he can.
I was just watching a congressman from the U.S. today claiming that the critics of Biden after the last debate are ableist.
Yeah.
In a highly anticipated debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Both came prepared to defend their records and attack their opponent's vision for the future. The encounter was full of real, impactful moments that hadn't been seen before, delivering a memorable exchange that left both their supporters and critics with much to dissect. The debate began with the topic of leadership and accountability. Harris wasted no time bringing up the COVID-19 pandemic and Trump's handling of it. She criticized the chaotic response under his administration, highlighting the staggering death toll and the miscommunication around public health measures.
It doesn't matter whether the President of the United States is able, because all discrimination between being able and unable is a form of prejudice. And that even applies with regards to the President of the United States. And so that means that all the people who are concerned that there might be something astray with him cognitively, that we're being lied to about at a level that's almost inconceivable.
Harris emphasized how the Biden administration had worked to repair the damage by accelerating vaccine distribution and rebuilding trust in science and health institutions. She drove home the point that lives were lost due to negligence, framing the debate as a matter of life and death that shouldn't be ignored. Trump fired back, defending his administration's handling of the pandemic. He claimed that without his quick action to close borders and push Operation Warp Speed, the pandemic's toll would have been far worse. Trump emphasized the rapid development of the vaccine under his administration, calling it a historical achievement. He argued that the economy was roaring back because of his initial policies and accused the Biden administration of unnecessarily prolonging lockdowns, damaging businesses, and creating inflation. Trump tried to paint Harris as part of an administration that was harming American workers. The economy, always a centerpiece in Trump's platform, was another flashpoint.
I just finished a book, which is going to be published in November, and I walked through a sequence of biblical stories trying to explain what they meant psychologically. And I spent some time on the book of Exodus for obvious reasons. And there's a commandment in there that people misapprehend. So I think it's the third commandment. Don't use God's name. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. And people think that means don't swear or curse. And it sort of means that. There's a peripheral meaning that is associated with that casual use of the sacred, let's say. But that isn't what it means.
Trump highlighted the economic boom before the pandemic, citing record-low unemployment, deregulation, and tax cuts that, according to him, spurred growth. He argued that the Biden-Harris policies were burdening businesses with unnecessary regulation and higher taxes, making it harder for the middle class to thrive. Trump turned to Harris and asked pointedly, "How do you expect to help the American people by taxing them more in a time when they need relief?" Harris, not backing down, laid out the Biden administration's approach to economic recovery, saying that the economy Trump touted had left too many people behind. She argued that the tax cuts primarily benefited the wealthiest Americans and corporations, further widening income inequality. Harris explained how the Biden administration was working to rebuild a more equitable economy with investments in infrastructure, green energy, and technology designed to create jobs for the future. She countered Trump's tax argument, saying that his policies failed the working class and that a more balanced approach was necessary to ensure long-term prosperity. Healthcare quickly became one of the debate's most heated issues. Harris fiercely defended the Affordable Care Act, ACA, and discussed the Biden administration's efforts to lower prescription drug costs and expand coverage. She accused Trump of relentlessly attacking the ACA during his presidency without offering a viable alternative, putting millions of Americans' healthcare at risk. People's lives are on the line when they can't afford to see a doctor or fill a prescription. You had 4 years to fix it, and you made it worse, Harris said, driving home the point that the Trump administration's healthcare approach was disastrous. Trump, as expected, pushed back hard, criticizing the ACA as a disaster. He argued that Obamacare made healthcare more expensive for many Americans and reduced the quality of care. Trump suggested that a market-based solution would allow more competition and drive down prices. He continued to tout his efforts to bring transparency to hospital pricing and lower prescription drug costs, saying his policies worked for everyday Americans. He framed Harris as someone who supported a government takeover of healthcare, which he claimed would limit choice and increase costs. On foreign policy, the clash between the two candidates was equally sharp. Trump touted his administration's peace deals in the Middle East, negotiations with North Korea, and the tough stance on China. He described himself as a leader who took bold steps to put America first, focusing on economic and military power to ensure the U.S. remained strong on the global stage. Trump took credit for reducing American involvement in costly wars, saying that he kept his promise to bring troops home while protecting American interests abroad. Harris, however, called Trump's foreign policy reckless and dangerous. She argued that his unpredictable actions, particularly his cozying up to authoritarian leaders, undermined America's moral standing and long-term security. Harris emphasized the importance of diplomacy, partnerships with allies, and a stable approach to international relations. She highlighted the Biden administration's focus on rebuilding relationships with NATO and re-engaging with global challenges like climate change and nuclear proliferation. Our allies didn't know where America stood under your leadership, and that made us weaker, not stronger, Harris charged. Perhaps the most explosive moment of the debate came when Harris turned the discussion toward the January 6th Capitol riot. She directly called out Trump for his role in inciting the violence, stating that his refusal to accept the results of a democratic election posed a threat to the very foundation of the country. The American people deserve better than a leader who fuels division and lies about our democratic process, Harris said, looking directly at Trump as she spoke. Trump didn't back down, continuing to question the integrity of the 2020 election. Despite the lack of evidence supporting his claims of widespread voter fraud, he reiterated his belief that election reforms were needed to secure the process, portraying himself as a champion of election integrity. However, Harris didn't let up, insisting that Trump's rhetoric had directly endangered lives and undermined democracy itself. Throughout the debate, the contrast between Harris's methodical approach to policy and Trump's instinct for the big, headline-grabbing moment was clear. Harris tried to steer the conversation back to specifics and policies, framing herself as a leader focused on real solutions. She positioned herself as someone who understood the complexities of governance and the need for competent, steady leadership. Trump, meanwhile, focused on connecting with his base by painting himself as the anti-establishment figure still fighting against Washington elites. He worked to energize his supporters by framing Harris as part of a political machine that doesn't understand or represent everyday Americans. David Muir just exposed a critical detail that everyone else missed during the debate, and it's causing quite a stir. Known for his sharp journalism and keen eye for the truth, Muir's latest revelation has shed new light on a key moment that went unnoticed by many. His insight is sparking widespread discussion, as people are now questioning what really happened during the debate. Muir's findings could change the narrative entirely, and the fallout from this exposure is bound to make waves.
ABC is a disgrace. I think having Donna Brazil sitting on that panel, and she's the one that gave the answers and the questions to Hillary Clinton before a debate. I think ABC should be shut out.
The hypothetical debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would undoubtedly be a high-stakes and highly anticipated political event. Both figures are known for their strong personalities, sharp rhetoric, and ability to captivate audiences, making this matchup a potential flashpoint in the political landscape. Such a debate would be marked by stark contrasts in policy, leadership style, and vision for the future of the country. From the outset, the tension between the two would be palpable. Kamala Harris, as the vice president and former senator from California, brings a reputation for being a skilled prosecutor, someone who is well-versed in debate tactics and can easily dissect arguments with precision. Her calm demeanor, combined with her sharp questioning style, would be on full display as she addresses Trump's policies, character, and record during his presidency. Donald Trump, the former president and a master of commanding the stage, would come into the debate with his signature style: bold, direct, and often unpredictable. Trump has always thrived in environments where he can energize his base by delivering fiery lines and pushing back aggressively against his opponents. His approach is often less about specifics and more about creating memorable moments, appealing to emotions and framing the debate in terms of his vision of strength and leadership. The opening moments of the debate would likely see each candidate laying out their vision for America. Harris would emphasize the successes of the Biden administration, particularly focusing on issues such as pandemic recovery, infrastructure investment, and the administration's efforts to restore global alliances. She would stress the importance of steady leadership, unity, and policies aimed at lifting up working families with a particular focus on healthcare, education, and climate change. Trump, on the other hand, would likely frame the debate around the idea of America first. He would critique the Biden administration for what he views as failures in economic policy, energy independence, and foreign affairs. Trump would argue that his presidency saw the strongest economy in recent memory before the COVID-19 pandemic, and would highlight his administration's efforts to deregulate industries, reduce taxes, and confront China. He would likely contrast his leadership style as strong and decisive compared to what he would frame as a weak and ineffective administration under Biden and Harris. One of the central flashpoints of the debate would almost certainly revolve around the economy. Harris would likely point to the Biden administration's efforts to pass major legislation aimed at revitalizing the economy after the pandemic, including relief packages and infrastructure spending that she claims have created jobs and rebuilt critical sectors. She would also likely focus on her work to promote equity in economic recovery, emphasizing how the administration has sought to help communities that have historically been left behind. Trump would respond by arguing that the economy under his administration was booming before the pandemic, and that his policies led to record low unemployment rates, particularly for minorities. He would claim that the Biden administration's policies are leading to inflation, higher taxes, and an economic slowdown. Trump would likely emphasize his belief in reducing government regulations and taxes as a way to stimulate economic growth, contrasting this with what he would describe as the Democrats' reliance on big government solutions. Another key point of contention would be healthcare. Harris would push for the administration's achievements in expanding healthcare access through the Affordable Care Act and its ongoing efforts to reduce prescription drug costs. She would frame the debate around the need for healthcare as a human right, likely promoting policies aimed at expanding coverage and reducing healthcare disparities, particularly for marginalized communities. Trump, however, would argue against government overreach in healthcare, promoting a more market-based approach. He would likely criticize the Affordable Care Act, reiterating his administration's attempts to dismantle it, though he may have to defend his lack of a clear replacement plan during his time in office. Trump would argue that his administration's policies, such as lowering drug prices and increasing competition in the healthcare market, were steps toward fixing a broken system. Foreign policy would also be a major topic, with Harris highlighting the Biden administration's efforts to restore America's position on the global stage. She would talk about rejoining international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and revitalizing relationships with NATO allies, framing the administration as one that believes in diplomacy and multilateralism. Harris would likely criticize Trump's approach to foreign relations, particularly his coziness with authoritarian leaders and his America First policy, which she might argue alienated the U.S. from key allies. Trump, as he often has in the past, would push back by emphasizing his administration's tough stance on China, his brokering of peace agreements in the Middle East, and his negotiations with North Korea. He would claim that his willingness to take unconventional approaches, such as meeting with Kim Jong-un or pulling out of international agreements like the Iran nuclear deal, were examples of bold leadership. Trump would likely paint the Biden administration's foreign policy as weak and ineffective, particularly in dealing with adversaries like Russia and China. One of the more personal and potentially explosive moments of the debate would likely come when discussing leadership styles and character. Harris would bring up the January 6th Capitol insurrection and Trump's role in inciting the violence that took place that day. She would argue that Trump's rhetoric and refusal to accept the results of the 2020 election posed a direct threat to democracy. Harris would frame herself as someone who values integrity, rule of law, and the importance of protecting democratic institutions. Trump, meanwhile, would likely continue to claim that the 2020 election was rigged or stolen, despite no evidence supporting those claims. He would pivot to discussing what he sees as the broader need for election security, focusing on his base's concerns about voter fraud. Trump would also use this moment to paint Harris and the Democrats as the ones undermining democracy, possibly bringing up issues like mail-in voting or the push to federalize election laws, which he might claim are efforts to give the Democrats an unfair advantage. Throughout the debate, there would be moments where both Harris and Trump try to appeal directly to their core supporters while attempting to sway undecided voters. Harris would present herself as a calm, collected leader who understands the challenges facing everyday Americans, using her experience as a prosecutor to dissect Trump's arguments and hold him accountable for his record. She would rely on facts, data, and policy specifics to make her case, particularly when discussing complex issues like healthcare, climate change, and criminal justice reform. Trump, on the other hand, would focus on his ability to connect with voters on an emotional level. He would likely use populist rhetoric, portraying himself as a fighter for the forgotten Americans and railing against what he sees as a corrupt political establishment. Trump's ability to create memorable moments, often through sharp jabs and unconventional tactics, would be on full display as he works to undermine Harris's points with his typical bravado. Vice President Kamala Harris is facing serious allegations that have raised eyebrows across the nation. Reports are emerging that her workplace environment has been described as one of complete fear, with staff members coming forward to reveal troubling details. These accusations, if true, could have significant implications not just for Harris, but for the broader political landscape as well. What exactly is being alleged, and what could this mean for the vice president's future? Let's dive into the unfolding situation.
Back in 2022, one Harris aide said this about working for Kamala, quote, "It's always been a problem. You have to have your people around you." And a 2019 op-ed about then-Senator Harris revealing, quote, "Senator Harris vocally throws F-bombs and other profanity constantly in her berating of staff and others. The staff is in complete fear of her, and she uses her profanity throughout the day." Even MSNBC host and former Harris staffer Simone Sanders hinted at struggling to work for the vice president.
Recent reports have thrust Vice President Kamala Harris into the spotlight, not for her political achievements, but for allegations concerning the work environment she oversees. Described by some insiders as an atmosphere of complete fear, these claims have triggered widespread concern and debate. The allegations suggest a workplace rife with tension, mismanagement, and a culture where employees feel unable to speak out without fear of retribution. The accusations primarily stem from anonymous sources, both current and former staff members, who have described a chaotic and stressful environment. According to these accounts, the vice president's office is marked by abrupt decision-making, unclear communication, and a management style that leaves staff feeling overworked, undervalued, and perpetually on edge. This has allegedly led to high turnover rates and a pervasive sense of unease among those working closest to Harris. Kamala Harris has long been recognized as a formidable leader with a reputation for being tough and demanding. Her rise through the political ranks, from District Attorney of San Francisco to Attorney General of California, and later as a U.S. Senator, has been marked by her assertive and detail-oriented approach. While this has won her praise for her effectiveness, it has also sparked criticism from those who have worked under her, describing her management style as overly harsh and exacting. The current allegations echo past concerns raised during Harris's tenure as a senator and a presidential candidate. During her campaign for the Democratic nomination, similar reports emerged about the challenging work environment, leading to several staff resignations. These earlier instances of discontent have now resurfaced, raising questions about whether these issues are part of a broader pattern in her leadership style. Among the most significant accusations are those related to poor communication within the vice president's office. Staff members reportedly feel left in the dark, with key decisions being made without their input or even their awareness.
It was new for me when I worked for her because I had never worked for a high-profile woman before. I had only ever worked for men. And there was one day at work where I was like, "Ma'am, you might be the last woman I work for, because this is a
there's a story there.
It's a lot. This a lot that we got to deal with over in here." It was something though that I think any candidate, any person in power needs to be aware of what the criticism is.
This lack of transparency is said to contribute to a sense of instability and uncertainty, as staffers struggle to keep up with the demands of their roles without clear guidance or support from senior leaders. Moreover, the pressure within Harris's office is reportedly immense, with high expectations and an intense workload that many find overwhelming. Staff members have described working long hours under constant stress, with little recognition or appreciation for their efforts. This high-pressure environment is said to foster a culture of fear, where employees are hesitant to speak out or raise concerns, fearing that doing so could jeopardize their careers. Another troubling aspect of the allegations involves the treatment of junior staff. Reports suggest that younger or less experienced employees feel particularly vulnerable in the vice president's office, where they are often subject to harsh criticism and unrealistic expectations. Some have described feeling intimidated and belittled by senior staff members, contributing to a toxic atmosphere that stifles collaboration and innovation.
Smart words. Simone was a huge part of the staff, Emily. And I remember when Simone left, this tweet went viral of this guy named David Gens, because a lot of people were leaving the office. Let's pull it up. This was him sitting at a desk outside of the office. "My name is David Gens. I work for Vice President Harris on behalf of the American people." And people said, "Blink twice if you need help, David."
These allegations have not only raised questions about Harris's leadership, but have also sparked broader discussions about workplace culture in politics. The political arena is notoriously demanding, with high stakes and intense pressure. But the accusations against Harris's office suggest that the environment may be crossing the line into something more damaging. If the reports are accurate, they indicate a workplace where fear and anxiety dominate, undermining both morale and productivity. In response to the allegations, Harris's team has largely downplayed the reports, with senior aides defending the vice president's leadership and dismissing the claims as exaggerated or unfounded. They argue that the office is simply a high-pressure environment due to the nature of the work, and that the vice president demands excellence, which can be challenging for some staff members. However, this response has done little to quell the concerns of those who have come forward, and the issue continues to attract attention both within Washington and beyond. The impact of these allegations could be far-reaching, potentially affecting Harris's future political ambitions. As the first woman, the first black woman, and the first person of South Asian descent to hold the office of vice president, Harris's career has been groundbreaking in many ways. However, the scrutiny of her management style and the environment within her office could cast a shadow over her accomplishments, particularly if the allegations continue to gain traction.
I'll just leave it there for your own extrapolation. These types of reports of her office culture have plagued her throughout California as well. This is nothing new, as you said, not now and not then. And I just point to when President Biden first took office, and he said, if someone doesn't operate with respect, I will fire them immediately. It seems like he should have looked inward. We've reported as well often and repeatedly about issues that she has had with how she's portrayed, the indignance she has about how she was, the shoes she wore on the Vogue cover, who invited her to meetings in foreign nations. Like, the list goes on about what offends her and sort of the draconian way, the draconian hand that she leads with. But I think at the end of the day, even if you say, well, I don't know what the facts are a 90+% turnover rate, and that's all you need to know.
As these allegations continue to make waves, they have sparked a broader conversation about the expectations placed on political leaders and the often harsh realities of working within high-stakes environments. The nature of political work, particularly in an office as central as that of the vice president, is undeniably intense. Staffers are required to navigate tight deadlines, significant pressure, and the constant need to perform at the highest level. However, the line between a demanding workplace and a toxic one is crucial and increasingly under scrutiny. Political offices are known for their fast-paced, high-pressure environments where the stakes are immense and the margin for error is slim. However, the accounts emerging from Harris's office suggest that this pressure may have crossed into something more damaging, potentially affecting not only staff morale, but also the effectiveness of the office itself. A toxic work environment can lead to decreased productivity, high turnover, and a loss of institutional knowledge, all of which can hinder the vice president's ability to fulfill her duties effectively. One of the key aspects of the allegations revolves around the issue of leadership and management style. Effective leadership is critical in any organization, but it is especially vital in political offices where decisions can have far-reaching consequences. Leaders who fail to foster a supportive and inclusive environment risk alienating their teams and undermining their own goals. The reports from Harris's office suggest that her leadership style may be contributing to the negative atmosphere, with some staffers feeling that their voices are not heard and that their contributions are not valued. This situation also raises important questions about the role of senior aides and other high-level staff in shaping workplace culture. In many cases, the tone and atmosphere of an office are set not only by the principal leader, but also by their closest advisors. If senior aides are contributing to or exacerbating the toxic environment, this reflects poorly on the overall management of the office. It also underscores the need for leaders to be aware of and address any negative behaviors or dynamics within their teams. The allegations against Harris also bring to the forefront the importance of diversity and inclusion in leadership.
Leaks.
Leaks. Also, you know, it's so funny. We started the show off with this wise Kamala Harris, who all of a sudden, just in the last 48 hours, has changed her mind on a myriad of subjects. But honestly, you know, if you can't be able to be candid with the President of the United States as a staffer, then that would mean a lot of things would go wrong, would just get worse. You know, and that's my concern as a voter, as an American citizen, the ability of whoever's in the Oval Office to recognize from time to time we don't get it right.
Yeah.
And who would have the heart, the nerve, the guts to be able to say, Madam President, this is wrong?
As a trailblazer in her own right, Harris has often championed the need for greater representation of women and people of color in positions of power. However, these allegations, if proven true, could undermine that message, suggesting that diversity in leadership must also be accompanied by a commitment to fostering a healthy and supportive work environment for all employees. Additionally, the timing of these allegations is significant, coming at a moment when workplace culture is under intense scrutiny across various sectors. The Me Too movement and other efforts to expose and address workplace misconduct have led to a broader societal reckoning with how employees are treated, particularly in high-pressure environments like politics. These movements have empowered individuals to speak out against toxic behaviors and demand accountability from those in power. In this context, the allegations against Harris could be seen as part of a larger trend of holding leaders accountable for the environments they create. As more employees across industries feel empowered to share their experiences, it is likely that similar stories will continue to emerge, leading to increased pressure on leaders to ensure that their workplaces are healthy, inclusive, and respectful. The potential political ramifications of these allegations cannot be overlooked.
Well, what I find so interesting about this whole thing is that a toxic workplace is the HR department's worst nightmare. And that you end up with lawsuits and things get leaked and it goes public and everything. Think of Ellen DeGeneres, another California lady who got outed. And this was after years of her having this successful talk show and everybody loved her. Oh, she's so funny. Oh, she's so sweet. But once one person came out and started talking about the toxic workplace at Ellen DeGeneres' show, everybody started coming out, including people that had been on her show. So I just wonder if it's a matter of time before we get more detail.
Harris's position as vice president makes her a key figure in the Biden administration, and any controversy surrounding her could have implications for the administration's broader agenda. If the allegations continue to gain traction, they could become a distraction, drawing attention away from the administration's policy initiatives and creating challenges for its messaging and public relations efforts. Moreover, these allegations could have long-term consequences for Harris's political future.
It is known in California and it's known in Washington. It is a heroic work environment if you work for her. Nobody lasts very long. Even as VP, when she didn't do anything, she could not keep staff. That is a person that the press will never talk about. How she treats people around her is a real indication of what she'll do in the future.
As someone who is often mentioned as a potential future presidential candidate, Harris's leadership and management style will be closely scrutinized by both supporters and opponents. The way she handles this situation could either bolster her reputation as a strong and effective leader or raise doubts about her ability to manage a complex and demanding office. In the ever-evolving landscape of American politics, few figures have left as indelible a mark as Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. Both trailblazers in their own right, they have shattered glass ceilings, redefined leadership, and inspired millions across the globe. From Obama's historic journey as the first African-American president to Harris's groundbreaking role as the first female, first black, and first South Asian vice president, their stories are woven with resilience, vision, and an unwavering commitment to change. Today, we explore the legacies of these two remarkable leaders, examining how their paths intersect and what their impact means for the future of America.
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories.
Barack Obama's ascent to the presidency was nothing short of transformative. Born to a Kenyan father and an American mother, his multicultural upbringing in Hawaii and Indonesia shaped his worldview. After graduating from Columbia University and Harvard Law School, where he became the first black president of the Harvard Law Review, Obama began his career in public service as a community organizer in Chicago. His commitment to social justice and equality was evident early on, as he worked to address issues like housing discrimination and economic inequality in underserved communities. Obama's political career took off when he was elected to the Illinois State Senate in 1996, where he advocated for ethics reform and expanded healthcare services for children and families. But it was his keynote address at the 2004 Democratic National Convention that catapulted him onto the national stage, with a message of hope and unity that resonated with Americans across the political spectrum. 4 years later, he made history as the 44th President of the United States, winning the hearts of millions with his message of, "Yes, we can." During his 2 terms, Obama tackled a range of critical issues, from passing the Affordable Care Act to leading the nation out of the Great Recession. His administration also made significant strides in addressing climate change, advancing LGBTQ+ rights, and restoring diplomatic relations with Cuba. Obama's presidency wasn't without challenges. He faced intense opposition from a divided Congress and had to navigate complex international crises. Yet through it all, he remained a symbol of hope and progress, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire future generations.
Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala.
Kamala Harris's journey to the vice presidency is equally groundbreaking. Born to immigrant parents, an Indian mother, and a Jamaican father, Harris was raised with a deep sense of justice and civic responsibility. Her mother, a prominent cancer researcher, instilled in her the belief that she could be anything she wanted to be, and Harris took that message to heart. After earning degrees from Howard University and the University of California, Hastings College of the Law, Harris began her career as a prosecutor, determined to make a difference in the criminal justice system. Harris quickly rose through the ranks, becoming the district attorney of San Francisco in 2004. There, she introduced innovative programs like Back on Track, aimed at reducing recidivism and providing first-time offenders with a second chance. Her tough-on-crime approach, coupled with her commitment to fairness and reform, earned her a reputation as a rising star in California politics.